Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Star Trek Prodigy Season 1, Episode 13, All the World's the Stage. This video is part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Star Trek Prodigy, so I have to start with the spoiler warning for the latest episode of Prodigy. If you have not seen it, you will not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. So, I really like this episode. I thought it was a really wholesome, really fun, really nostalgic without being too fan servicey or indulgent. Little fun story. Parts of it kind of felt like a Lower Decks episode to me. Like, I could actually see this premise being done in Lower Decks. It would be a bit more silly and crazy than they would play up the comedy, but it had that feel to it. And there were several times in this episode where I was laughing out loud. Now, people who've watched my channel, my other videos, might be aware of the fact that, and I'm covering the original series at the moment, that I don't really like William Shatner as an actor, and I really, so I always make fun of his overacting, and I love seeing like other comedians do it. So I got a real kick out of one of the characters being like this Shatner impersonator who was just doing like an over-the-top Shatner impersonation. It was like, "Welcome to our planet. Are you from Starfleet? My name is James T." Like, I loved that. I got a huge kick out of that. we had a George Takei impersonator as well. So there's a couple of episodes this reminded me of. So it reminded me of the premise. So when they were going to do Trials and Tribulations for Deep Space Nine's 5th season, their original idea was to revisit the planet that Kirk and Spock went to in A Piece of the Action, because they're highly, imitative, and apparently, like, McCoy left a communicator or something behind, so they, a Deep Space Nine crew would visit the planet and everyone would be dressed like Kirk and Spock, and they would all be, like, imitating Starfleet. So it kind of seems like that's what they did in this episode, although they did it with an original planet. And also, it reminds me of the Voyager episode, The Muse, not to be confused with the terrible Deep Space Nine one, although the Voyager one isn't that good either. But, in that episode, they put on a play based on, the Voyager story, basically. Someone was doing Janeway and someone was doing the Borg Queen. So it's basically what we saw here, where they put on this play where they were acting as the original series crew. So remind me of that. I think there was another episode too that this reminded me of, but I can't think of it right now. It'll probably come to me. But anyway, so I looked it up, and apparently the ensign who, oh no, I get the other episode. Sorry, the other episode it reminds me of is Living Witness, because Living Witness, we see centuries later how the species would interpret and misinterpret events that happened when they encountered a Starfleet ship. And so they kind of did that here as well, though they look at it way more positively in this episode. But still, the way they got like certain details wrong, they would say, what did they say instead of Starfleet? It was like I can't remember. And it would be like, live long and proper and stuff like that. I think they did the Vulcan net. I can't even do it wrong. I think they did it wrong. Anyway. And that sort of thing, how, history kind of gets blurred. And especially with this society tends to have a sort of verbal way of keeping track of history, and that can get distorted. And so I appreciated that. I really, really like that. Now, the other thing is, so the ensign, I looked him up. I would have never known this, but apparently is the same ensign from the episode Obsession, which I didn't think was a very good episode. And they hyper focus on this ensign, like Kirk like grooming him to be better, and then we never see him again. So this episode is saying that the ensign eventually crashed on this planet in the shuttlecraft Galileo. So they would place it somewhere in the original series, second season apparently, because apparently towards the end, in the third season, we saw the Galileo 2 with no reference of whatever happened to Galileo 1, and apparently the last episode we saw that in was the immunity syndrome. So this is supposed to take, this ensign crashing on this planet is supposed to take place between those two episodes. I was hoping that they were referencing a very specific episode that we've seen this planet before, but that turns out not to be the case. But the ensign apparently is the dude from Obsession. Now, if I understand correctly, though, the protostar is still out in the Delta Quadrant. So how did Kirk's Enterprise get out to the Delta Quadrant? Or are they saying the protostar flew in closer to Starfleet? Which, why would they do that, since they know that if they encounter a Federation ship or any Starfleet technology, it's going to self-destruct, which he mentions at the start, like even opening hailing frequency will spread the virus. So why would they go towards Starfleet? Shouldn't they go away from Starfleet? But if they did, or even if they just sidetracked, how the hell did the original series Enterprise get out that damn far? I think in this episode they mentioned something of a worm, like when they were doing that play. So I guess they were trying to say they went through a wormhole, and the ensign got left behind, and the Enterprise went back to the Alpha Quadrant. Maybe that's what they're saying. I don't know. So that, I guess that would make sense if they went into a wormhole, and the ensign got left behind in the Galileo, but the Kirk had to save his crew to go back to the wormhole before it closed. I'm just kind of extrapolating from incomplete data, but that and you could call it fansplaining, but that makes sense to me if that's what they're going for. So anywho, so yeah, I thought this was a really wholesome episode, this the way, and I love how they tied it into the Prodigy crew about how and that was kind of funny too when they were like, oh, they're just pretending to be Starfleet, isn't that silly? And Dahl looked down at his uniform and his badge, is like, yeah, that's silly. Why would anyone pretend to be in Starfleet when they're not? That was cool. But then they tied it into that theme of the crew not feeling like they belong, or not feeling like they're actual Starfleet, and how those people from the planet are just like, it's more of an ideal, you just gotta believe or whatever. And I thought that was really touching, especially when we heard the ensign's log at the end of the episode, where he was saying I didn't save these people saved me. Like that, and sort of saying that they're the ones who should be praised and have the strength, and they really uphold the ideals of Starfleet. Yeah, that was so good. I thought that was really touching. I thought that was really powerful. And then you get the through stories with how this ties into our characters, and this really was a strong moment for Dahl, where he realized that he would, because they played with that with his doubts of should they really be trying to help other species, should they really be acting like they're a Starfleet ship when clearly they're not. But he's getting sort of reinforced that it's more of a philosophy rather than anything specific. So that was really touching. And I like how sort of Gwen was the steadfast one who refused to back down through all this, and like, let's go find this, gallows and hit it, attack it straight on. And of course, Jenkin Pod was there as the comic relief, who was all cowardly. But then once he saw it was an engineering problem, he was like, I'm an engineer. I can't shirk away from this. So that was really good. I really liked that. Now we get the side plot with Rocktop still on the ship looking after Murph. I don't know what the deal with Murph is at the end of the episode. Is Murph metamorphosizing and changing into something else? If so, I hope not. I liked Murph as he was. Don't change Murph. But anyway, Murph is awesome. But I think that's what I get from this. That's what seems to be implied. But they have they know what species, the Federation knows what species that is, so shouldn't Hologram Janeway know what's going on with Murph if this is a normal thing for that species? But anyway. We get the side plot with Admiral Janeway as sort of an ongoing thing, and as I suspected, the God, I keep forgetting his damn name. The evil bad guy, mustache twirly dude. He has indeed lost his memory, and is kind of giving them wrong picture of what happened to the Protostar, giving Janeway the impression that some thieves stole captured Chakotay and stole the Protostar, and so she's going to go hunting after the Protostar. So we know that she's actually drawing the wrong conclusions, that it was the dude that she has is the one that captured Chakotay. Now, we still don't know that for sure, and we don't know where Chakotay is, but we definitely know the people who have the Protostar weren't the ones that captured him. And so they're setting us up for this storyline where Janeway's going to try to encounter the Protostar, but the kids on the ship know that if she does, that would mean her destruction, so they would try to run from her, and she would take that as their fugitives running away and try even harder to catch them. So it's going to be interesting to see where they take this, and I feel like this is definitely a slow burn, because last week's episode, when they encountered the space station that was destroyed, I'm like, what happened to the Denobulan dude? But then they mentioned in this episode, we found this, that we scanned this pod out yonder, so if we can go over there and pick him up, and he might have some answers, and we didn't see that, and so next episode we'll probably see them pick him up, and he'll tell them about the kids, and Janeway will think because he thought they sabotaged the ship on purpose, so she's gonna portray them in a very negative light, and so Janeway's gonna think that they're the enemy or whatever. And so it's playing out really, really slowly, so that does give me the impression they are sort of prolonging this storyline that's not really going to be resolved or even touched on until towards the end of the season, which I'm okay with. Like, that's an interesting format to do, especially if you have those episodic episodes in between that are as good as this one, because this one was really good. And of course, you had that moment at the end of the episode where they brought the aliens on the ship, and they did the holographic recreation of the original series bridge so that they could operate it. Like, that was pretty cool. And it's like, they're used to something more retro. So I felt it was a really nice sort of call back to the original series, and nod to the original series, and nod to fans without being too fan servicey. Like the other episode they did last half of the season with the holographic versions of Dr. Crusher and Spock and shit, like, that was too fan servicey for me. That was going too far, and plus because the plot itself was kind of dumb. But here, they didn't go too far. It seemed like more in line, and actually they made a good story out of it that was a good character stories for our main stories. And I do love how it tied into their main character stories about their doubts about feeling as if they don't belong in Starfleet. So I thought it was quite good. So I'm going to go a bit crazy here, but my rating for All the World's a Stage out of 10 is a 9. Excellent. I think this is the best episode of Prodigy so far. I will go as far to say that. Even better than that Time one, because I think it was really touching. Like, I really liked, and I liked the callback to the original series, but it wasn't too invasive. And yeah, for the characters, and it was an interesting look about, as I said, it reminded me of episodes like Living Witness, where it's interesting to see and they even mentioned Second Contact, so that's also why I got Lower Deck vibes, because they're like, oh, what are the protocols for, these aren't exactly the protocols for Second Contact. And I was like, Second Contact, just like the California class. That's what they were doing in this episode. There were parts that were funny, and this was just a good watch. So yeah, I really like this one. So that's it for my review of the latest episode of Prodigy. I shall be back next week and every week thereafter to continue reviewing Prodigy, so be sure to check out my channel for that. Also check out my channel as I'm going through every episode in order of the original series, and doing random other videos every once in a while as well. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that, and thanks a lot for watching.